The city of Kawinda woke under a sky painted with soft orange and pink. At the edge of the horizon, the ancient baobab trees stood tall, their shadows stretching like long fingers toward the rising sun. These old giants had watched generations come and go, yet today they stood beside tall glass towers that touched the clouds. It was a place where tradition and modern ambition lived side by side, sometimes in harmony, sometimes at war. Children ran along dusty footpaths, kicking bottle caps and laughing freely, while sleek cars sped past on paved roads carrying men and women who never glanced outside their tinted windows. The city felt split, like a calabash cracked down the middle. One side for the rich who rarely walked, the other for ordinary families whose strength came from unity, from sharing pots of food, from singing together under the moon. As the morning grew louder, the rhythm of machines began to rise, the clatter of construction, the hum of engines, the clang of metal. But beneath that noise, the heartbeat of the land still pulsed. Drums echoed from a small cultural center, their sound deep and warm. The ancestors seemed to speak through them, reminding the people that even as the world changed, the spirit of the land must not be forgotten. In the markets, elders sat beneath bright umbrellas, telling stories to children with wide eyes. "Listen well," one said, lifting a wrinkled finger. "Some people grow with their community. They rise because many hands lift them. But there are a few, a dangerous few, who rise alone. When they climb too high without the support of others, the wind of pride pushes them toward a hard fall." The elder leaned closer to the children and lowered his voice. "Never forget this proverb. When a man forgets his roots, even the ground beneath him will turn away." The children repeated the words, not knowing that somewhere across the city, the story of a man who would prove that proverb true was already unfolding. Jabari Mwangi had once been like those children, barefoot, hungry, and full of dreams too big for his small village. People said he was the boy who ran after the sun, trying to catch its light in his hands. He worked hard, studied harder, and climbed so fast that the city could no longer ignore him. By the time he turned 30, he was richer than many chiefs, owning companies that built skyscrapers so tall, even the clouds bowed to them. But as his crown grew heavier with gold, something inside him hardened. His smile faded. His laughter became rare. He began walking past old friends without greeting them, pretending not to see the people who once fed him when he had nothing. Wealth made him crave more respect, more praise, more status. The man who had once eaten roasted maize with street children now preferred dining with foreign investors in high-rise restaurants. People whispered that Jabari had traded tradition for towers of glass, that he had replaced the wisdom of elders with the cold shine of wealth. As his fortune grew, his connection to home became thin, like a rope fraying strand by strand. But before wealth filled his eyes, there had been Aisha. Aisha Mwangi, the woman whose hands had built the very foundation of Jabari's success. She was simple, humble, and rooted deeply in the values of the village they both came from. Her kindness was the kind that healed wounds. Her patience was the kind that softened storms. She cooked his meals, encouraged his dreams, prayed for him every morning, and stayed awake every night when he worked late in their small home. They met during days of struggle, when life was tough but their hearts were full. Back then, love felt pure, like rain on dry land. They shared roasted sweet potatoes and laughed under the light of the same moon their ancestors once danced beneath. When Jabari failed, Aisha lifted him. When he succeeded, she celebrated more loudly than anyone else. But as fortune swept into Jabari's life like a flood, its waters carried away the sweetness of their early love. Mama Zola, Jabari's mother, fueled the fire. She valued wealth over wisdom, appearance over character. Every time she visited, she reminded him, a billionaire must have a wife that fits the title. Aisha, she is too plain, too simple. Her words dripped into Jabari's ears like poison. Soon, shame crept into his heart like an unwelcome spirit. He began seeing Aisha's village dresses as unrefined. Her gentle voice became too soft. Her simple meals were too traditional. When they attended high-class gatherings, he felt embarrassed by her lack of expensive jewelry and wealthy connections. Whispers began swirling in Mama Zola's circle. "There is a woman from the Kimathi family," they said. "Educated, beautiful, and rich. A bride worthy of a billionaire." These whispers rooted themselves in Jabari's growing pride. The night everything changed, rain beat heavily against the windows of their mansion. Jabari stood before Aisha with cold eyes, a suitcase at her feet. "You need to leave," he said, refusing to meet her gaze. Aisha's hands trembled as she held the small bag she packed, just a few clothes, her wedding necklace, and a picture of happier days. "Jabari," she whispered, "is this truly what you want?" He looked away. "You no longer fit the life I'm building." The words sliced through her like a blade. Without another word, Aisha stepped out into the storm. She walked down the long driveway, her silhouette disappearing into the dark, carried away like dust in the wind. In the days that followed, rumors spread quietly. Some said she returned to her village. Others said she wandered the streets, broken by betrayal. The city of Kawinda kept moving, but to those who knew her, the air felt a little heavier, as though a light had dimmed. And so the stage was set, the rise of a man who forgot his roots, and the fall that awaited him like a shadow at noon. Jabari stood inside his penthouse office, staring out at the city that now bowed before his wealth. Towers he built rose like mountains, sharp and proud. Yet inside his chest there was only emptiness, a quiet space that no amount of money could fill. People envied him, praised him, even feared him, but none of that warmed his heart. Every night, when the city slept, he felt a hollow ache, like a drum with torn skin. In taxis, markets, and barber shops, people whispered about him. "A man cannot rise so high without losing something," an old barber once said. "Jabari runs from his own shadow." Others murmured, "His wealth is strong, but his spirit is weak. Something is missing. Something broken." The city spoke in soft tones, the way people speak when discussing a curse they do not want to call by name. Far beyond the skyscrapers, in the realm where silence touches the wind, the ancestors stirred. Their voices moved like distant thunder, rising and falling in warning. They had watched Jabari climb the mountain of wealth while stepping on the stones of humility and love. Now, like clouds gathering before a storm, they began to prepare a lesson, one that would fall on him like rain when he least expected it. Destiny has a way of turning back to the one who tries to outrun it. Jabari's betrayal had been thrown into the world like a stone tossed into a river, and now the ripples were returning. His path, once paved with gold, began to feel heavy beneath his feet. Something unseen tightened around him, a circle closing. And somewhere in that unseen space, the universe held its breath. The woman he cast aside, the one he thought lost to the winds of fate, was alive. Alive and walking a path that would bring her back into his life. Not as the soft wife he abandoned, but as a symbol of all the consequences he had tried to forget. One late afternoon, as Jabari drove toward the outskirts of the city, a strange wind rose. Dust spiraled across the road, creating a curtain that moved like living spirits. The air hissed through the dry grass like whispers from the ancestors. Even the sky seemed to darken for a moment. Jabari tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "What kind of wind is this?" he muttered. But the land knew. The spirits knew. A lesson was stirring. The road ahead stretched empty and long, sinking into a landscape of forgotten shops, abandoned stalls, and old billboards faded by the sun. It was a lonely road, one where even the birds kept their distance. As Jabari drove deeper, he felt a strange chill crawl up his spine. The place felt hollow, like his own heart. Every shadow along the roadside seemed to hold a story he had tried to bury. Then he saw her. A thin woman sat on a rock near the dusty edge of the road. Her shoulders were curved inward, her clothes worn and colorless. A small begging bowl rested beside her feet. Though her body looked tired, her spirit had not bowed completely. There was something unbroken in the way she held herself, something the world had not managed to steal. Jabari slowed down, squinting through the dusty haze. There was something familiar about her, something in the way she lowered her head, as though carrying years of silent suffering. His chest tightened. "No, it can't be," he whispered. He studied her face again. The tired eyes. The gentle shape of her lips. The way she breathed, as though each breath was a quiet battle. Those eyes. He had seen them before, long ago, when life was simple, when love lived without fear. But he hesitated. Pride held his mind hostage. He told himself, "Aisha is gone. This cannot be her." Yet the truth knocked harder and harder inside him, refusing to be denied. When the woman lifted her head and the dust cleared, recognition struck him like thunder. It was Aisha, the woman he abandoned, the wife he threw into the night. Here she was, living in dust, begging for survival while he slept in a bed softer than clouds. His breath caught. His fingers tightened around the steering wheel until they shook. "Yamungo," he whispered. "What have I done?" His hands trembled, shaking as though the spirits themselves were pulling at his bones. The same hands that once signed million-dollar contracts, built empires, and commanded respect, now they felt weak, useless, almost ashamed to exist. Memories began to rush back, echoing inside him like voices shouting in a dark cave. He saw Aisha cooking for him when they had nothing. He saw her saving every coin to support his dreams. He saw her smile on days when hunger filled the house. He saw her tears when he pushed her away. Each memory cut him deeper. Shame pressed down on his chest until he could barely breathe. He felt the weight of every cruel word he spoke. Every moment he allowed his pride to grow instead of gratitude. Wealth had blinded him, and now his heart felt like it was drowning in regret. Inside him, a battle erupted, like two spirits fighting for his soul. One spirit whispered, "Drive away. What will people say if they see you here? A billionaire stopping for a beggar." The other spirit, older and wiser, whispered, "Face her. Help her. The ancestors are watching." Jabari closed his eyes. Sweat ran down his temple. He imagined the newspapers mocking him, the investors questioning him, the world laughing at his weakness. Then he imagined leaving Aisha in the dust, pretending he never saw her. The thought stabbed him with a pain deeper than any public shame. He realized he stood at a crossroads, one that no amount of money could help him choose. "Which path will I take?" he asked himself, voice trembling. "The coward's path, or the righteous one?" Before he could think further, fate tightened its grip. His heart made the choice before his mind could resist. He opened the car door. The whispers began slowly, like smoke curling from a burning hut on a still morning. People passing along the roadside paused, squinting as if their eyes were playing tricks. "Is that not Jabari, the man whose wealth stretches farther than the river's bend?" one murmured. Another leaned in, voice low. "Why is he kneeling beside a woman dressed in dust?" Their whispers rose higher and higher, carried by the wind, growing bold as gossip often does. Soon, every tongue wagged with curiosity, judgment, and silent questions that Jabari could feel tightening around his neck like a rope woven with shame and truth. The tale did not stay on the road. It moved into the heart of the city like water flowing into dry cracks. Market women plucking beans and measuring salt paused mid-gesture as someone whispered, "Have you heard what the ancestors have allowed today?" Street vendors selling roasted maize leaned closer, their voices dancing between shock and delight. "Even a lion must bow one day," a cobbler said as he hammered nails into an old sandal. Word spread with the speed of a hungry fire, leaping from one curious soul to another, carried by laughter, disbelief, and the deep human love for stories that sting with meaning. By noon, the city buzzed with one image, Jabari, the mighty billionaire, bowing beside the woman he once cast aside like an unwanted calabash. People said it was justice rolling out before their very eyes. "The ancestors have long memories," an elder declared as she wrapped vegetables in old newspaper. "A man cannot plant thorns and expect roses." Some clapped their tongues in pity, others smiled with quiet satisfaction. Even those who did not know the couple felt the weight of the moment. Something rare was unfolding, riches kneeling before suffering. Jabari felt the eyes of the world crawling across his skin. His name, the same name carved on business towers and gold plaques, threatened to shatter like a clay pot held in the unsteady hands of a small child. His heart thumped wildly. "If people see me like this, what will they say?" he whispered to himself. Sweat gathered at the back of his neck despite the cool wind. Reputation, he knew, was fragile, easily broken, never fully repaired. And at that moment, he felt its cracks spreading. Aisha's voice was soft as she began to speak, but her words carried a weight that made the earth seem still. She told Jabari how she had returned to her childhood village, seeking comfort and shelter. But when she arrived, she found only ruin. Floodwaters had swallowed the land like a greedy beast, washing away mud huts, memories, and the home that once held her laughter. "It was as if the ground rose against us," she said, her eyes distant. The destruction left her with no place to stand, no past to lean on, no foundation to call her own. With courage stitched into her heart, she walked toward the city to find work. But the city was full of shadows wearing friendly faces. A smooth-talking man approached her with promises of a job in a big store. His words were sweet, like ripe mango, but carried the poison of deceit. "Sister, I will help you rise again," he had said. Trusting him, she followed, only to realize too late that she had stepped into a trap. Instead of opportunity, he led her to an empty room where others waited with hungry eyes and quick hands. They robbed her of every coin she carried, savings she had guarded with hope and prayer. Her bag, her clothes, even the small charm her grandmother had given her were snatched away. Yet when she spoke of it, her voice did not tremble. "They took what they could hold," she said quietly, "but not what sits inside me." Though stripped of belongings, she refused to let fear take her spirit. Her dignity, like a tall tree refusing to bow to wind, remained firm. Days turned into weeks as she struggled in the city of stone and steel. She slept where safety allowed, worked in small houses, washed clothes, fetched water, and cleaned dusty shops. Hunger visited often, and loneliness dressed itself like a second skin. But Aisha pushed forward, step by step, refusing to crumble. She learned to read people, to avoid danger, to stretch a single meal across 2 days. Every sunrise became a reason to try again. Through everything, her faith burned like a lantern that refused to die, even when storms howled around it. "I knew," she said softly, "that if I kept walking, the ancestors would guide my feet." Her hope, though tired, never fell. Even as she begged by the roadside, her spirit still carried the quiet glow of someone who believes dawn will come, no matter how long the night lasts. Before Jabari could speak further, he heard another voice, sharper, older, and filled with the weight of authority. Mama Zola, his mother, arrived like a storm wrapped in bright cloth and heavy jewelry. Her presence alone could bend the silence of any room. She was a woman who worshipped status the way others worshipped the gods. To her, reputation was a crown that must shine at all times, no matter whose tears were used to polish it. And she held a grip on Jabari's life stronger than chains forged in fire. Her words shot from her mouth like spears thrown by a seasoned hunter. "Jabari, stand up. Do you want the whole city laughing at us?" she snapped, glaring at Aisha as if she were a stain on the earth. "Walk away before disgrace swallows you. This woman belongs to the past. Leave her where she chose to fall." Her fear of embarrassment was louder than compassion, louder even than the truth standing before her. She cared only for what people would say, not for what her son's heart was breaking over. Jabari felt old emotions tightening around him, guilt, duty, and the quiet fear of disappointing the mother who raised him. Mama Zola's voice wrapped around him like emotional chains, squeezing until he could barely breathe. "You owe your family," she hissed. "You owe your future. Do not throw your name into the mud for a woman who sinks everywhere she goes." He closed his eyes, torn between her command and the sight of Aisha's tired, honest face. The elders in Jabari's village always taught that wisdom flows from gray hair. But sometimes, tradition becomes twisted when pride enters the heart. Mama Zola used culture as a shield, waving it like a banner to hide her selfish concerns. "I speak as an elder," she declared proudly. Yet her words carried no balance, no fairness, only fear of losing standing in society. And Jabari, caught between tradition and truth, felt the earth tremble beneath his feet. That night, when the moon hid behind a thick cloud, Jabari moved like a shadow through the quiet streets. In his hands he carried a small basket filled with food, a warm blanket, and a bar of soap wrapped in brown paper. He placed it gently near the corner where Aisha slept. The wind rustled the banana trees nearby, as though the ancestors themselves were watching. Jabari whispered to the darkness, "Forgive me, this is all I can do for now." Then he stepped back, disappearing into his car before anyone could notice. It was strange how a powerful man now hid like a boy caught stealing mangoes, too ashamed to be seen doing good. Night after night, Jabari returned. He parked far away, turning off his lights so no one could see him. He watched Aisha from a distance, his heart twisting like cloth being wrung dry. Sometimes she sat with her head bowed, speaking softly to herself. Sometimes she simply stared at the sky, as if searching for answers written between the stars. Jabari felt guilt gnaw at him like a stubborn rat chewing grain. "Look what I have done," he whispered. Look what she has become because of me. His wealth suddenly felt heavy, like stones tied to his chest. Aisha found the gifts each morning with gentle surprise. She looked around before touching anything, making sure no one was watching. "Whoever you are," she whispered, lifting the blanket to her cheek, "may the ancestors bless your footsteps." Her gratitude was deep but quiet, like a river hidden under forest roots. She continued to beg during the day, but these gifts kept her spirit from breaking. Even without knowing who helped her, she refused to let shame live in her heart. "Help is help," she said softly. "Pride cannot fill an empty stomach." From his hiding place, Jabari felt something opening inside him, something he had locked away long ago. His heart softened like clay under falling rain, reshaping itself with every breath he took. He found himself wanting to do more, to wipe away every trace of suffering he caused. Yet fear, pride, and uncertainty still tugged at him. "One day," he murmured, "I will stand before her with the truth." But that day had not yet come. Soon, the city picked up the scent of a story the way a wild dog smells meat from far away. Journalists began prowling the streets, asking questions, clicking pictures, whispering among themselves. "Why is a once-respected woman begging?" one reporter asked. "And why does she receive gifts at night?" another wondered, scribbling notes with hungry eyes. Rumors spread like harmattan fire, quick, hot, and impossible to stop. The air thickened with tension, as though the whole city waited for thunder to strike. The next morning, the newspapers roared louder than any talking drum. Headlines screamed across the front pages, "Billionaire's ex-wife found begging in the streets." The story hit the nation like a spear thrown from a hilltop. People gasped, pointing fingers at Jabari's business holdings. Radio hosts shouted, "Is this justice or shame?" TV presenters cried out, "Has the mighty man forgotten compassion?" The scandal grew into a storm so fierce even the ancestors must have paused to listen. Jabari's business partners reacted like hyenas circling a wounded lion. Their voices were sharp, their eyes cold. "This mess will swallow us all," one said. "We cannot stand beside a man who drags his name through mud," another growled. Their loyalty faded quickly, replaced by self-preservation. They stepped away from him, refusing calls, canceling meetings, pretending they had never stood proudly at his side. The pressure grew heavier when the board of directors summoned Jabari. They sat in a long room with stern faces, folding their hands like judges in an ancient court. "You must stay away from that woman," the chairman said. "Your connection to her will destroy us all. Keep your distance, or we will remove you." Their words were cold and final. Jabari felt the walls closing around him, squeezing his heart like a fist. He walked out of the meeting and stood alone in the hallway. The air felt tight, as though fate itself had wrapped around his neck. Power and remorse pulled him in opposite directions. His mind spun like a wheel caught in the mud. "Do I chase wealth," he asked himself, "or do I follow the path my heart shows me?" He knew the choice ahead would define him more than all his years of success. Night fell heavy and slow, settling over the city like a warning whispered by the ancestors. Clouds gathered above, hiding the moon. Even the streetlights flickered as though afraid to stand strong. Jabari drove with a restless mind, the road stretching dark and silent before him. Something in his chest told him a turning point was close, closer than breath, closer than memory. Not far from where Aisha rested, hungry shadows began to move. A group of desperate thieves, thin and sharp like jackals, crept toward her. Her little begging bowl glimmered faintly in the darkness, drawing them like flies to honey. "Look at her," one muttered. "She cannot fight back." Another whispered, "Even the dust beneath her feet belongs to no one." Their steps grew bolder, circling her like predators waiting to pounce. Aisha sensed danger before she saw it. Her heart thumped against her ribs, and she clutched her bowl tightly. When the first thief grabbed her arm, she cried out, a sound sharp enough to slice through the night. "Help!" Her voice echoed down the dusty road. Fear and desperation mixed in her breath, rising like smoke from a fire that refused to die. Far down the road, Jabari heard her voice. His body reacted before his mind could catch up. He slammed the brakes, threw open the car door, and ran toward the sound. The thieves froze when they saw him, this tall, wealthy man leaping from a luxury car like a warrior leaving a throne. His eyes burned with fury, not fear. For a moment, no one moved. Even the wind held its breath. Then chaos burst open. Jabari pushed one thief aside, grabbed another by the shirt, and shouted, "Leave her alone!" The thieves, shocked by the unexpected fire in him, hesitated. People nearby peeked from their windows, stunned by the sight of a billionaire fighting in the street like a man defending his clan. Some whispered, "This is the justice of fate." Others murmured, "The ancestors have spoken tonight." It was no longer just a fight in the dust. It was pride crashing into consequence, the past colliding with the present. And in that moment, the community saw the truth. Jabari could no longer run from what he had done. Something powerful was shifting, and the night itself knew it. Aisha tried to stand, but her knees bent like dry stalks of millet in a storm. Her breath shook, and the world tilted before her eyes. Days of hunger, heat, and sorrow had stolen the strength from her body. With a soft gasp, she collapsed onto the dusty ground. Her begging bowl rolled away, tapping lightly against a stone as if announcing her fall to the spirits above. Those nearby paused, but no one moved close. Fear and pity held them back. Aisha lay still, her suffering finally too heavy for her fragile frame to carry any longer. Jabari rushed forward, his heart pounding like a drum in a war dance. When he lifted her, his hands trembled so badly he almost dropped her. "Aisha! Oh, Aisha!" he whispered, his voice cracking. The warmth of her skin was fading, and her head rested limply against his chest. Fear wrapped around him like a snake coiling tighter and tighter. "Look what I have done," he murmured. "Ancestors, forgive me." For the first time, he felt the true weight of his betrayal pressing down on him. He placed her gently in the back seat of his expensive car, but his tears fell freely onto the smooth leather. He didn't wipe them away. He didn't care. His sobs filled the car, echoing off the windows like the cries of a broken spirit. "Wake up! Please wake up!" he pleaded, gripping the steering wheel with shaking hands. For years he had built walls around his heart, but now those walls crumbled like old mud bricks under rain. He drove into the night as though chased by invisible spirits. The road blurred before him, his guilt pushing the car faster and faster. Streetlights flashed past like judging eyes, each one reminding him of a choice he could never undo. The wind roared through the open window, but nothing could silence the voice inside him saying, "This is your doing, Jabari, this is your doing." When Jabari reached the hospital, doctors rushed Aisha into an emergency room. Minutes felt like years as he paced the hallway, sweat running down his face. Finally, the doctor approached with a grave expression. "Sir," he said softly, "the woman is severely malnourished and dehydrated. Her body is shutting down. She has been struggling for a long time." Jabari swallowed hard, the doctor's words cutting deeper than any blade. Had she come even a day later, she might not have survived. It was the truth he had tried to ignore, now spoken plainly like morning sun exposing hidden dirt. When Jabari entered her room, his legs weakened beneath him. He sank to his knees beside her bed. Aisha lay still, her lips cracked, her hands pale and thin like the branches of a dying tree. Machines beeped beside her, each sound a reminder of how fragile she had become. Jabari bowed his head, unable to breathe for a moment. "This is my doing," he whispered. "All of this." Tears streamed down his face, hot and unending. They were the tears of a man who finally saw the path he had walked, one made of pride, foolishness, and betrayal. "I left you," he choked. "I left you to suffer." His voice shook like a leaf in the harmattan wind. For the first time in many years, he let himself feel everything, the guilt, the regret, the shame. He held her limp hand between both of his, pressing it to his forehead. "Aisha, forgive me," he begged softly. "I beg you. Even if your ears cannot hear me now, let your spirit hear my heart." But she did not move. Her silence was a mirror reflecting all his failures. In that silence, he finally understood the depth of the wound he had created. By sunrise, the city was alive with voices sharp as spearheads. News of Aisha's collapse spread fast, through markets, buses, radio stations, and crowded breakfast tables. People argued loudly, waving their hands in frustration. "Did he bring her to the hospital out of guilt?" someone asked. "Maybe it is love," another replied. The city split into two like rivers flowing in different directions. Some saw a man seeking redemption. Others saw a coward trying to cover his shame. Their words filled the air, each opinion louder than the last. As the noise grew, there came a powerful presence through the hospital doors, Mama Zola. Her wrapper swished with every angry step, and her eyes burned with fire. "Where is my son?" she demanded. Her voice carried the authority of an elder who expected the world to bow. When she reached Aisha's room and saw Jabari sitting beside the bed, she gasped. "Have you lost your mind?" she hissed. "Do you want to destroy us all?" Jabari rose slowly, wiping his face. But Mama Zola stood tall, blocking him like a storm blocking the sun. "Leave this girl," she ordered. "Let her stay where she belongs. You owe her nothing. Our family name must not be dragged in mud again." The room filled with tension thick enough to cut. Jabari clenched his fists, his jaw trembling. "Mama, please," he said, "this is not the time." But she jabbed her finger toward him. "You are my son. You will obey me." Jabari took a deep breath, and something powerful shifted inside him, something ancient, something righteous. He stepped between his mother and the bed, his voice steady for the first time. "No, Mama," he said firmly. "I will not abandon her again." His words struck the room like thunder. Mama Zola stared at him, shocked. "You dare defy me?" she whispered. Jabari lifted his chin. If saving her means losing everything else, then so be it. And just like that, the proud matriarch felt her throne crumble. The lion had finally roared. Aisha's eyelids fluttered as if small birds were trapped beneath them. Her breath returned slowly, a fragile flame sheltered from the wind, each inhale a quiet victory over the darkness that had held her. She shifted slightly, startled by the unfamiliar room, walls painted in colors she did not know, and the soft beeping of machines marking each heartbeat she had almost lost. Turning her head, she saw him, Jabari. He sat close, his shoulders hunched, eyes weary with guilt, and hands folded as though they had carried the weight of centuries of regret. The sight made her chest tighten. For a moment, she could not decide if she should recoil or reach out. Memories rose unbidden, nights spent hungry, the sharp edges of rejection, the endless days of wandering in the city's cold shadows. Her heart pounded, torn between fear and gratitude. She whispered, "Why are you here?" His voice, quiet and hoarse, trembled. "Because I should have been here all along." Neither spoke for a long time, the silence heavy with unspoken apologies and the promise of change, as if the ancestors themselves held their breath. Jabari rose and approached her bedside, each step careful, each gesture stripped of the arrogance that had once defined him. "Aisha," he said softly, eyes lowered, "I have wronged you. I cannot erase the past, but I must try to make it right." Pride fell from him like dry leaves from an ancient tree. He pledged to repair the damage he had wrought, starting with the village she once called home. Houses crumbled under the weight of old floods and neglect were restored. Farmland tilled and seeded, community centers rebuilt where laughter and learning might once again flourish. With every home rebuilt, every hand he helped, he felt the walls around his heart soften, revealing a man willing to kneel in service. In her name, he founded a charity for widows, abandoned women, and struggling mothers, those whose lives mirrored her own hardships. "Let this work speak," he whispered to the sky one evening. "Let it honor what I failed to protect." Each step of giving reshaped him, softening his soul, teaching humility in a way wealth never could. Day by day, strength returned to Aisha like the morning sun rising over the savannah. Her body healed, but more importantly, her spirit blossomed again, vibrant and unbroken. She walked through the city streets with new purpose, no longer hiding, no longer small. Returning to her cultural roots, she wore bright African fabrics, reds, yellows, and greens that sang of rebirth, hope, and courage. Each garment wrapped around her was a declaration. She had endured, she had survived, and she was more herself than ever. She forgave Jabari, not to rekindle love, but to release the heavy burden of old pain. "I will not let you or the past define me," she said quietly, watching him from across a courtyard. And in that moment, she stood taller than ever, a woman rising from ashes, forged by trials and the resilience of her ancestors. The city itself seemed to bow in acknowledgement, as if the wind carried the whispers of elders approving her strength. The question lingered in the hospital like the scent of rain on dry earth. Nurses whispered in corridors, neighbors murmured in the waiting rooms, and even the city seemed to pause, wondering if love could rise from ashes so deep. "Will they find each other again?" voices asked, eyes flicking toward the pair who had suffered so much. But Aisha, strengthened by the trials that had carved wisdom into her soul, shook her head softly. "I must first stand on my own feet," she said, her voice steady yet tender. She left the hospital not as a wife seeking forgiveness, but as a woman reclaiming her life. In a small, sunlit home, she found the quiet peace she had long been denied. With hands guided by experience, she opened a support center for women, widows, abandoned mothers, and those forgotten by fortune. Her compassion became a lantern for others, a testament to resilience and hope. Jabari watched from a distance, offering help quietly, giving without interfering, honoring her independence while learning to serve with humility. The storyteller's voice rose, weaving the closing wisdom through the minds of those listening. "A man who rises without gratitude will fall before his shadow." Jabari felt the truth in his bones. Wealth without humanity left him hollow. Aisha, radiant in her dignity and perseverance, became a beacon of African womanhood, her journey teaching that destiny favors the humble and punishes the prideful. The sun sank behind the ancient baobab tree, its massive trunk casting long shadows across the earth. Aisha walked forward with strength, her presence commanding yet serene. Jabari remained apart, watching quietly, transformed by the lessons of love, loss, and redemption. Above them, the ancestors murmured approval, their whispers carried by the wind, blessing her new beginning and the promise of lives renewed.